Who this? Hello. Oh my gosh, it looks like my little live chat thing on the side will actually work today. What was that? Hey everybody, I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to turn this off. It's just that. Let's flip the switch. I'll just flip the switch. Flip. Shout out to my ex Ruby. People listen to that song all the time. I should hit him up. I would go see him, but I don't know what that meant. Anyway, hi everybody. So this morning, last night, when I was in the bed, it came to me the whole like gate of Chatiel thing, the thing about the mirror and how it's like if there's anything that you lack, you can pull it from this mirror space and turn it into something that you possess. So I was shuffling, trying to see if I would get a card for the thumbnail, and Ambriel, Angel of Gemini, came out again. So shout out to Ambriel. I feel like today it's carrying this energy. So I see Ambriel and I see Ambriel's shadow, and it reminds me of Bezaliel, the angel of shadow. But today, I don't know if it's because I want it to be or because it is. But today it's feeling like an energy of merging back into one. And there's something that has to take place within the self to allow both shadow and light to occupy the same space. Because it's like, just like in the physical world, if two different masses try to occupy the same space, it's like they'll tear each other apart or they'll tear the fabric of the universe apart. And then everything starts to unravel. But it's about, ooh, we ended with the red joker. Look, there it is again, that 10 of diamonds, talking about the heart of creation. Prophetic dreams, inspired action. Oh, we got both of the jokers. Well, the red joker was face down. I don't know if I've ever got both of the jokers before. I love that it's the black joker and the red joker because it's giving me that energy of hyperdimensionality and what I was going to talk about, but I forgot because I started rambling. Also, I'm going to say it so I don't forget, but I'll probably still forget. I started watching Russ's Lilith and Dark Eve video, but I didn't finish. And I wanted to talk about that for a second. But anyway, going back to this, it's feeling like they're coming back together. It feels like they're learning to occupy the same space. And then we get the red joker and the black joker. And it's like the black joker is the predecessor or the primordial clubs and spades energy. The red joker is predecessor or primordial hearts and diamonds energy. And together, it's that I don't know what to call it besides the divine space before they're polarized into the black and the red. So prophetic dreams, inspired action, tapping into the other side, material intervention, the coming of spring, and mastering the game of life. I was going to talk about this mastering the game of life energy, so I'm glad it came out because that's what it feels like it is. It feels like it's not a mirror, it's just the realm of potential. It feels like you can reach into the realm of potential and basically sculpt your life the way you want it. And it reminds me of when I was going on and on with the Four of Zones a long time ago. The Four of, let's see what it reads. Oh, I don't think it was the actual card. I think it might have been an energy, but let's go anyway. So the Four of Spades, because I'm talking about the Four of Zones, like this is the Sage of Zones. What? And it was like, we're basically learning how reality works. And there are certain things that need to be accounted for. Okay. So it wasn't this card specifically, I don't think. It was the energy that popped out in one of the numbers. And I'm, you know what? Today, I got time. I got time today. So we'll go through. I wish I could just search. Actually, I can because I have my computer. Chatting. Kase Guzer. I'm actually going to do this because the search would make it a lot easier. What did I title this, though? Bear with me, or don't. Also, today, I think I discovered what makes me a little hard to manipulate. And it's the fact that I sort of call people out on their BS inadvertently, and I do it myself. I think a lot of times when people are upset or when they want you to do something, they say certain things that they don't mean. But if you push me too far, I'll say, okay. And like I had a whole argument with my friend today because he's had a stressful week because he's been like every day he's been interviewing and networking. He's been doing a lot of it because he's going to be relocating soon. And so yesterday we had a talk. Today we were joking about something, but then he did it for real. And he was already sort of pushing my buttons a little bit. I'm like, I don't know why you do things. Like last time it was amazing. And fine, like it was about food. And he was like, I cooked it, so blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what do you mean you cooked it? Like we cooked this together. I did just as much as you did. And he was like, fine, well then like whatever I cook, I'll eat. And then whatever you cook, you'll eat. And I said, all right, bet. Like let's all of this stuff I got, it's mine. And you make your stuff and we'll be good. And then of course he didn't want that, so that didn't last too long. And it reminds me of also when I was applying for college and I got frustrated. I was already sort of like feeling some type of way anyway. And my mom said something. She was like, well, you ain't got to go nowhere. I was like, all right, bet, fine. Then I'll rescind my admission. I'll tell them I'm not coming. I'll go to the local community college and they'll be good. And she's like, no, you going. Oh, it's 2/22 on April 22nd. Look at all them twos. And why that 2/22 on April 22nd almost remind me of like 2/22/2022. 2/22/2022. Hey, 2/20. Sorry. And she was like, I was like, all right, fine. Like, I won't go. And I think a lot of times, like, whenever I can be the same way, right? I can say things that I don't really mean, or I can say things that I don't want, but at the same time, I'm going to do it. And whenever somebody else tells me something, I'm like, all right, bet. So let's do it. I'm not the type of person to really take things like that lightly. Like I get that we all say stuff that we don't mean, but my thing is like, don't say anything that you don't mean because messing with me, it might come to be. Be careful what you wish for because you'll get it with me. And I get it myself too. It's part of my shadow. Like I kept myself depressed and miserable for a long time. Like it's not anything new to me. But anyway, that happened today. And I was like, and then I had a dream. Oh, this is the only one that has it? Okay. So it's the gray 9. I think the gray 9 is the 9 of no. What's the message? Oh, okay. What is the gray 9 actually? Well, it'll be a 9, so I'll just look for IX. Yeah. And it's part of my shadow that I need to let go. And I had a dream. That's a 10. No, wait, is this it? No, this isn't it. But interestingly enough, this one, I'll put it off to the side. And I had a dream a few nights ago that perplexed me a little bit. So, like I said, I hit up my friend and she pulled some cards and we worked through it together. And today I'm getting a realization of it that I didn't necessarily get at the time. And it is that unique aspect of my shadow. Sometimes when I'm put in certain situations, I call people out and I call myself out. And I'm like, neither one of us wants this. But if you're going to try to use this as leverage or whatever, like I'm actually going to do it because you pushed me far enough. I'm going to do it. If someone's like, oh, like do this or like we won't be friends, it actually is the 9 of spades. If someone's like, oh, do this or we won't be friends, I'll be like, all right, bet, like bye. Like it was nice knowing you. I had a good time, but you're not about to manipulate me into doing something I don't want to do. It's like I think you think that I want this more than I don't want to do that. And right now, that's not happening. So if these are the conditions and stipulations that you're putting on something right now, I hope you're prepared to back it up, because I am. And I need to not be like that. That's one of the ways in which I've been called out, or not called out, in which my sort of shadow has been illuminated to me a little bit. Another way is, it's going back to what I was saying about different aspects. And it goes to when that five of, I guess I'll find that one too. When the five of clubs came out, and I was like, there's this, like, it feels like there's like a war of souls or something, like two souls trying to occupy the same vessel, or two souls trying to occupy the same space or something like that. It's kind of that energy where the core is the same. Is this it? Sure. I don't know. I'll pull it. It's kind of like that energy where the core is the same, but it goes about doing it in a different way. And that is what was illuminated to me, or what has been illuminated to me over the past few days, especially as we're coming into the Scorpio full moon. Apparently, there's going to be a 32-hour void of course moon. I'm like, a 32-hour void moon before the Scorpio full moon. Like, sign me up. I'm excited. I'm ready. Let's see what's brewing and happening. So then I'll transition into that. Russ was talking about the difference between Lilith. Russ from Wrestling Around was talking about the difference between Lilith and Dark Eve. And I don't know if he goes into it more fully at the end of the video. I only watched like the first 5 minutes. But it reminds me of what he was saying when he did the like what's coming to your country video. And he was like, if you look up Dark Eve, you probably won't find much. But my initial take on it is, when a feminine does masculine the way that toxic masculine does masculine in order to make something happen. And a lot of times, depending on the ideology or the way that that feminine thinks, she may think that she's in her Lilith energy, but actually she's in Dark Eve, because Lilith does things in a truly feminine way. Eve doesn't have the context to know what is truly feminine and what is truly masculine. So she will go into her masculine and claim femininity, just like any other masculine would claim dominance over femininity, but she's claiming that dominance over herself. Essentially. Again, I didn't watch the whole video. I'll go back and see. But I think that's an interesting difference. Because Lilith she does things in her own way. And, it kind of sort of makes sense, because she wasn't made from Adam. Anyway, that was a little bit about that. The thing about potentiality, it feels like that's sort of the energy that is possible. And I think also last night or earlier this morning, I gotta go to the bathroom, but it's fine. I realized that how I read and what I read for, again, like in the past, I was reading to illuminate things that we didn't see that needed to be healed in order to get us forward on our journeys. Because that's how I read for myself. That was my intention when I started. And in everything, I kind of sort of carried that intention over. For most things, I carried that intention over. And so, depending on who I read for and when I read for them, if they weren't yet ready to heal those things, then they would get something out of the message that wasn't necessarily what it was, right? And now that I'm shifting my focus towards like the after healing, or more towards what we have to claim when the bridge between our light and our dark has been sort of reconciled. Now it's starting to get a lot. Honestly, it's a lot of stuff that I'm just like, but like, what does this mean? Not what does it mean, but it's like, okay, but like, how do we do this? And honestly, if I figure it out, I'm not going to say anything, because I think it's for us all to figure out on our own. I think, especially recently, that we all sort of have our own ways of going about getting the things that we are getting, because it gets closer and closer to the truest nature of the self. And now with this embryo that keeps coming out, and also with Bezalel, there's this energy that is like, it just left my brain. It literally just left my brain. But it's like as we get closer and closer to, oh, there's the energy of the aspect. So the core is what the core is. Oh, and then that's Lilith versus the dark Eve. The core is what the core is. And we can either go about expressing that in a Lilith way, in a dark Eve way, in a dark Adam way, or in an Adam way. And an Adam way that is like an elevated Adam, right? The elevated Adam that is capable of working with that Lilith or that elevated Lilith to the point where Eve was never created, because there was no need for her to be. Adam and Lilith were together. And so that's sort of going back to that hyperdimensionality. It's in some ways it's going back to that realm of potential. It really is us in some ways designing our lives, but designing our lives with a more complete understanding of life and how things work. And also, it's a need to allow for evolution and maturation, because it still isn't necessarily going to go exactly your way, because life is, it's a fluid, it's a, I don't, volatile. I was going to say, well, I don't want to say mutile. It's a volatile and mutable energy. It isn't stagnant. Sometimes things become things that you didn't expect because there's random genetic mutation, right? Or whatever. And so it's a lot of that that I feel like is kind of sort of, I don't know if it's necessarily, I don't know how possible it is right now, but some could argue that it has always been possible. It just hasn't necessarily been the easiest to see because of everything that was happening. And I think that's another thing. It's because my aunt told me something a while ago. Because it was when they first, I think it was like when Pfizer or Moderna or AstraZeneca or whoever was first coming out with the news of the vaccine. And I was like, it's been like less than a year, or it's been about, it was less than a year to about it. No, because it's been a year now. So I was like, it's been less than a year and they already have this. And my aunt was like, yeah, but like, and it reminds me of something that I've heard a lot of people say, that like we already have a cure for cancer and we already have a cure for a lot of diseases that aren't yet out. And then I just thought, it would be interesting if because of this, now all of a sudden, all of these medical advancements or all of these things that medically we have the ability to do, but we aren't doing, because then you can sell people different medicines and therapies and all kinds of stuff instead of actually treating it. But now, because of the direness of this situation, some of that higher knowledge is coming to be. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily it. All I'm saying is that's an interesting perspective to take, where there's a whole bunch of other perspectives on like, where is this coming from and how is it so whatever, right? How do we get it so quickly? Is that relevant? I don't know. Anyway, going back to the aspects, going back to embryo, it feels like there are at least two, but multiple ways of going about doing something. There's the dark Eve way, and then there's the Lilith way. If you're more into the feminine side, there's the dark Lilith way and the Adam way, I guess, if you're on the masculine side. Or is it just like toxic masculine and more divine masculine? But then there's toxic feminine and more divine feminine. And a lot of divine feminine energies will be like, I, it's like toxic masculine, but in a female body sometimes. So the Four of Spades and the corresponding Four of Spades energy, it's the Nine and the Four of Spades. So the Four of Spades is a certain mental stability. It's everything operating in a way that is easy for us to understand because historically and traditionally, it's always been that way. To get to the Nine of Spades, which is the Nine of Swords, which is an energy that we really don't like. Typically, a lot of people don't like, for good reason. It's the difference of the Five of Spades. So that's us really, honestly, it's experiencing so much. It's almost the space of a mental breakdown. To go from the Four of Spades to the Nine of Spades, like so much has to change that your fundamental understanding of things is completely shifted and almost shattered. I think when it comes to earth and air, more so than water and fire, potentially. It's harder to break those fours. Now, the Four of Swords is that card of like mental rest, and it isn't that hard to break the Four of Swords because, there's problems that continuously abound in the world. If you want to be upset or stressed or anxious, you'll find a reason. But with the Four of Zones, as far as like our mental understanding of how things work, that's a lot easier, or it's a lot harder to change because everything that we experience, we sort of filter through that context. And the nine here before the 10, it's almost getting us to see everything in the space that we are in or were in before we come into the next space because it's important. It's almost like it's important for you to understand how things got this bad, how things devolved this far in the first place. It's important for us to know how we got here and how we keep ourselves here, regardless of our efforts over the years. It's important for us to know what doesn't work and what doesn't work to change what doesn't work. The Four of Spades is an arrow that swims through the air, forced pliability, and a fixed vision in a volatile space. The Nine of Spades, a swaying tower that is moments from toppling, clouded vision in burning lands, and a powder keg. So we have this clouded vision, burning lands, powder keg, forced pliability. I feel like that the forced pliability really are what really picks up on that is how honestly it's almost a two-part thing. It's how our understanding was so potentially fundamentally rocked. And it's also in part what we clung on to or what we found to make sense out of everything. And from a certain perspective, on either side, on any side of it, from you could take a perspective of like, oh, they're like they found something that doesn't really serve them, it doesn't benefit them, it keeps them comfortable. Right? If you're already in a space of distrust anyway, then you're going to be more likely to fall into the camp that furthers that distrust. Right? If you're already in a space of being complicit and compliant, then you're probably going to fall more into what makes you more complicit and more compliant. There wasn't, I feel, anything really, I didn't necessarily experience um, anyone saying anything that was like groundbreaking or revolutionary. It seems like through the space of everything that happened, people just doubled down in a lot of ways. And for me, myself personally, I feel like it was a time and a space for me to almost, I want to say, think from a more divine perspective, to think from like the clockwork perspective and like what would be allowed and what wouldn't be allowed, because there are certain things that cannot be violated. And there are a lot of ways in which we allow for things to happen without necessarily consciously knowing that we're allowing for it to happen. Or at least ways in which we encourage things to happen in which we may not fully consciously know that we're encouraging it. But that's the sword. It's a double-edged sword. Your beliefs and your mind, right? They say that a mind is a terrible thing to waste, but it can also like it can be your greatest strength or your greatest weakness. The mind, and a lot of us don't really have a lot of control over it. And then there's all kinds of mental or psychological diagnoses about the mind and things like that. It's not Not necessarily getting into all of that, but the mind is one of the tools that the magician has. And so there needs to be a certain, um, what's the word? I think it starts with the C, competency. There needs to be a certain competency with the mind and with the heart and with all of the elements, and also with your ability to sort of stick fast to something and to make something happen, to pull it in, to bring light to what isn't yet known or seen. That's the fire. So, and then I pulled these two cards. I don't remember why. I don't remember why. I pulled this card because this was the card of it feeling like there's like two souls trying to occupy the same space. That was the 5 of clubs. I pulled the 10 of spades because it's also a 9. I don't remember why I pulled this one. So with these two, fueling the growing fire of truth, creating space for a miracle, and delving inside to go beyond. With the 10 of spades, the 5 of clubs is the day of longest light or night, a garment for all occasions and filling a gap. It feels like there are certain gaps in our understanding, but it also feels like we know enough to know how to navigate these spaces internally rather than, and again, it feels like it's going back to that, like that merging of these two aspects. It meets at the core, and it's almost like, there's been enough time, or we've lived enough lifetimes of going about things in one way that it's time for us to truly discover the power that lies in going about it in a different way. The angel of Virgo, again, I feel like she came out yesterday. She was at the bottom yesterday, wasn't she? And then here's Asbiel, angel of ruin. I didn't pull a single red card out. They all black, and they're all spades besides this 5 of clubs. So we have the 4 and the 9 of spades. So it's like, because I said that there was a 5 of spades missing, but we got a 5 of clubs and a 10 of spades. So it's almost like through the completion here, then this 5 can sort of slip into this element, or that these two together is sort of what separates these. Or maybe instead of separating them, it's what's born out of them. Because there are a lot of things born out of tension, just like there are a lot of things born out of union and cohesion. Hamalyle. And each person hides a gift that they have yet to give to the world. Untapped potential rises just below the surface and is withheld until the moment is right. The reservoir of energy stands in wait, holding a very special sort of power through its hidden nature. Hamalyle embodies that secret wellspring that flows from all of us. Oh, snap. It feels so wait. So the way I was seeing this at first, I was like, because Hamalyle is she's shadow with this golden heart. And it's a golden heart that extends down down past the solar plexus and into the sacral. Now the root, I don't know. And what's interesting is it feels like a second throat chakra, because it's like from the heart, the second head comes out. And in both of these cards, the dark hand is holding the heart. I feel like that sort of speaks to a sort of emotionality and how we cope with things that happen to us emotionally and mentally and physically in all kinds of ways, right? But there's something in this angel of Gemini And these are we officially in the first decan of Gemini? I think we might be. Because it feels like this last 10 degrees, which is the first 10 degrees of North Node in Gemini, is going to be a lot of us learning to navigate duality and learning to navigate duality within ourselves. Whereas, again, our natural response to something can be something that doesn't serve us at all. And we'll get a lot further by shifting it. No, it's 11 degrees, not quite yet into the first decan, but we're getting closer. Is this Shatiel? No, this is Ananiel, Angel of Storms at the top of the deck, with the Angel of Ruin at the bottom. The great sage Asbiel was a beloved storyteller. Gifts were brought to him regularly from those who wished to hear him speak, a tradition he loved. His dictation started at dawn each day. The constant stream of tokens he was presented meant he spent his days speaking almost without end. When word came, he held out hope for peace. Honestly, with the mention of the gifts in Virgo, it's reminding me, or it's giving me the image of like, there are certain gifts and abilities that we had or that we have, and we could take them to Asbiel. And Asbiel would look at our gifts and tell us ways in which they could play together, ways in which we can evolve them. It's almost like he's a quest giver, right? You take a certain quest item, you get a quest item at the start of the game, or you complete a certain quest and you get an item. And then you take that item to Asbiel. It's reminding me of the Atma system in Final Fantasy XIV. And it's funny because I just deleted Final Fantasy XIV, and Atma means soul, I believe. The Atma Karaka, that's like some aspect of the soul. And so it's like, it's this weapon associated with the soul. And you go out and you collect fragments and then you turn the fragments into whatever, right? It feels like Asbiel is the quest giver. You take the gift to him, he tells you how to elevate that gift or another way to use it. And then you leave a more evolved and more powerful being. But Asbiel has turned into the Angel of Ruin because we're in a space of constant war. And I think that's what this is. That's the shadow holding the heart. That's our internal condition that keeps us from being able to really elevate above where we are. And so all of this abundance, it falls into ruin. It basically rots. But abundance, a frequency can't rot. And so what actually happens is the realm of its potential shrinks and the realm of other potentials grow. And a lot of times we pick the low hanging fruit. Why is Rahab just chilling on the? Rahab is just on the table. The top of the deck was Ananiel. As the sun began to set, the boats turned to back towards the shore. All the while, Ananiel pleaded with them to stay. Ignoring him, the fishermen held to their course. Angered, the angel summoned the waves to do what his words could not. He wrenched their boats from their destination and pulled them until the land was lost to the horizon. In life, these first seafarers had been his acolytes. In death, they were their own men. What? This is interesting because this morning I was playing Diablo 3, trying to pass time. And I noticed that there were these like watery hydras. And there were, I guess, Nagas or snake people in an area. I was like, when did they add these to the game? Like, I've played this game so much, I've never seen these. I guess it was an area I had never been to. And it's giving me that energy. I mean, it is giving me the energy. Look at the water. Look at the Leviathan head coming out. Look at the winding of this. That's another thing. It reminds me of, I think it's Snake. I don't remember the name of the game. I don't remember why it came to mind earlier. But I think it was because of this clockwork sort of like pulling from the realm of potential and making it a reality energy. And it's going back to the wisdom that's needed as we do it. And it's like the game Snake, where you run around and you collect dots and you don't eat your own tail, which leads me to this coming out of the water, the sea serpent that isn't biting its own tail, because it made me think of Jörmungandr. the world serpent and how it bites its own tail, right? And so it's like, as we're navigating through the realm of potential, we pick up these dots and we get longer and longer and bigger as we do it. But the more you accumulate, the more consciously you have to move. Because if you move carelessly, you'll bite yourself. You'll end up hitting the line and then you'll have to start the game all over. And I've only ever seen it done on the internet. But when you get every dot, the head connects to the tail. It becomes this Jörmungandr, which is capable of holding its own Midgard, right? You contain your it's like a fully contained experience. And I feel like I don't know if it's part of the wisdom that we're going to need, but it felt like a lot of us will prematurely bite ourselves. It may not even be in the tail. Maybe it's in the tail. If you bite yourself in the tail, that's a very like old Queen of Swords, very like Four of Zones type of energy, where you come into this mental completion where you know everything and you understand everything, but you keep yourself extremely limited instead of, this or even bigger. Like you cut yourself off from that. And again, it doesn't rot the abundance that you have, because as a frequency, it can't rot, but you cut yourself off from it. You isolate yourself from it. And your system of operations, the realm of abundance shrinks and the other realms of potential grow. Right? And I'm seeing this, like, I didn't notice it the first time, but it feels like Hamalyle she's not a shadow. She's like stardust, because you can see like the cosmos in her hair. You see like little stars. But this golden goose, the golden goose that hatched from the golden egg that came out a minute ago, the golden goose is almost like embracing her. And the goose's wings become her wings. What? There's that one episode of SpongeBob with his inflatable pants or whatever. I'm looking at this, and in my head, it like, you don't need wings to fly. All you need is friendship. All you need is friendship. You don't need wings to fly. I feel like that's a more cooperative. It's a more cooperative energy rather than a competitive energy. And then Rahab just chilling on the table, I guess. Angel of the deep. Rahab ferried the bodies of the dead into the sea. So we have Ananiel, angel of the storms. What did he say? Angered, the angel summoned the waves to do what his words could not. He wrenched their boats from their destination and pulled them until the land was lost to the horizon. Rahab ferried the bodies of the dead into the sea. He promised to mankind, his promise to mankind was to bring them to a place where they would never be disturbed. They prayed that the abyss would give the dead peace. No one could know for sure except the grim watcher. The passage into darkness was a place of no return. It was his home and his alone. That is its nature. I feel like that's a very like Scorpio message. We are coming upon this full moon in Scorpio. Also, apparently, there's a 32-hour void moon before that happens. Excuse me. And I feel like I've said everything that I wanted to say. I feel like in that game of Snake, I've connected to all of the dots that I wanted, and I took a very roundabout path to get there. But yeah, I feel like this is some of the stuff that lies beyond. I don't want to say the elementary healing that we're doing right now, but in comparison to all that we're capable of, it feels elementary. Now, some people have a lot more like traumatic baggage than others, granted. And I don't want to say that even still that's elementary, but even still, what you're capable of, your potential is so much greater than that. And a lot of times it feels like we try to dark Eve, brute force our way into these divine spaces, calling ourselves divine feminine or thinking that we're operating in divine femininity. But in reality, it's like we're putting toxic masculine energy in a different body. or we're like, it's a new take on toxic masculine energy. Toxic masculine, now rebranded as divine feminine. You get 25% more toxic masculinity. So yeah, actually, I do want to look for the king. I'm going to look at the king of spades because that is the sage of zones, which is in like working through the zones. It felt like at a certain space, we understand how the world works, right? In some, in more and more and more subtle and fine ways, we get closer and closer and closer to a more divine understanding. And at a certain point or part, it's like if you're playing Minecraft, I don't know, and there are certain basic building blocks that you use to make your life and create your reality. Oh my gosh, the blocks undone. Everything is a synchronicity at this point. Um, Undone is an amazing show. Amazon Prime. Check it out if you want. Um, it's like we have these basic blocks, but then we get these like special blocks, like glowing blocks, invisible blocks. You get glass blocks, so it's not a solid log cabin or whatever. As we ascend the realm of zones, as we go from the Ace of Swords to the King of Swords. And at a certain point, again, we get all of those magical blocks. And so we get to sort of tailor our experience differently. But at that point, it requires such a fine understanding of how things work that it's like it requires a fine understanding of how things work. Um, and that's sort of getting closer and closer to what lies beyond these initial rifts as we integrate more and more and more with this in a way that isn't as separate as we experience ourselves in multiple or more than one aspect, I guess. And I think that's what that dream was about that I had a few nights ago. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, I'm receiving this message so clearly. Like, what? How is it this clear? Hello, excuse me? And then I was more just like, oh my gosh, it's so clear than actually paying attention. But today, because of the experience with my friend, it made sense. It was an aspect of myself that I haven't necessarily been in too sternly or stubbornly lately, but it completes the picture for me. And I'm like, oh, okay. Also, within the past few days, I've been experiencing that those other aspects are just as powerful, if not more powerful. And they're a lot less, I don't want to say destructive, but they make more room for more energies. It's not as like isolationistic, I guess, as the other aspect of myself is at the very least. Um, and in a lot of ways, it is an evolution of a lot of the gifts and abilities and the ways that I am naturally, but with less of a hold on the other side of like, because it's always a balance, right? I don't know. It's hard to explain, but find your Asbiel. Asbiel will teach you how to further your gifts and abilities, but he can't do that while you're at war. When war came, he held out hope for peace, but this is what happened to him. Now he's the angel of ruin because the peace never came. Peace doesn't come, we create it. The king of spades, inspiring others by bold example, proper magnetism, and clear intention, clearing of the fog. Here we had, where was it? Where was it? Clouded vision and burning lands in the nine of spades. In the king of spades, it's the clear, not only the clearing of the fog, but it's proper magnetism and that, well, more so proper magnetism, but the clear intention is important. And it's that proper magnetism that puts us at mastering the snake game, where the snake gets longer and longer and we never bite our own tails or bite ourselves in the neck or whatever, right? Where we can actually go where we can master the game of life and sort of become our own Jörmungandr. but a bigger one, right? Jörmungandr was a problem because he was so big. If Jörmungandr was a garden snake that just so happened to bite its own tail, you just like flick it and it goes away, right? So that's what I got. Take this as it resonates in the moment and time where I guess it activates for you. But this is where my intention is sort of shifting to now. What lies beyond that more elementary healing? What sort of is there when we've more mastered many aspects of the self? And we can, in some ways, um, it's like that's so weird. It came to me like reformulating your soul, but it's not reformulating your soul because the soul is what the soul is. It's reformulating your essence. It's reformulating the water, right? The fire is what the fire is, but the water is a combination of things, right? Water is the universal solvent. It can dissolve a lot of things. And okay. The Eight of Clubs, an immediately met request, a land where all seasons reside in a return to center. It's exactly that. Because it is like all of those aspects reside. You drive it from the center, but the reformulation is how we're like dialing and tuning, just like when you're sound mixing. I don't know anything about music really, but when you're sound mixing and you're adjusting the treble and the bass and the volumes, and like if you have different audio tracks, then you're adjusting the volume on the tracks to create a different symphonic piece from the same instruments, but just rearranged differently. It's that energy. Bottom of the deck. Well, here's the Six of Clubs. Oh, with that black joker. Ay. Oh, look, it's the Five of Clubs, the Six of Clubs, and the Black Joker with that forced uprising from yesterday when the Two of Diamonds and the Ten of Diamonds came out. A forced uprising, and we had forced pliability the other on one of those other cards. A forced uprising, an ancient word that stirs ancient things to life whispered. There's that ancient word that stirs ancient things to life whispered again. So the day of longest light or night, a garment for all occasions, filling a gap, prophetic dreams inspired action, tapping into the other side, a shift in the wind, a leaf caught in an eddy, and the birth of a new language. I love the birth of a new language because it's really sort of bringing in this high priestessy energy. Also, there's the ancient, there's the ancient language in that Two of Diamonds. So is it new or is it just one that was lost? It's like whenever you basically reinvent the wheel. Oh my gosh, look, there it is. The card that was left at the bottom was the Four of Spades. Forced pliability here and a forced uprising in the Two of Diamonds. I know it's all backwards and you can't really see it. I'm actually going to shuffle this more because that was a lot of a chain of cards that I had gotten at the bottom. Just mix it up a little bit, shake it up a little, shake it up a little bit, shake it up a little, shake it up a little bit. Fueling the growing fire of truth. Look, the 4 and the 10. I just cut this. Okay. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. All right, I'm gonna go to the restroom. I'll be right back. When I lift the screen, that'll mean I'm back. Because a whole bunch of cards just came out, so I don't want to leave without talking about them. All right, I'm back. I did wash my hands. I know I'll use the restroom quick. So the 10 of spades flipped over. Like 3 cards flipped over. The 4 of diamonds flipped over. Woo! And the 7 of hearts flipped over in reverse. But, you know. Bottom of the deck is the 5 of spades. This is the 5 of spades that was missing between the 4 and the 9. The rise of 2 empires synchronized, a vision that ignites the self and the soul. I like that. So we'll read it in the order that they flipped out, I guess, or flipped over. So the 7 of hearts, a favorable turn of fortune, a powerful message duly received. 4 of diamonds, dawn before the first day of a new world, an old earth passed away, and a breathtaking sight. So we got a favorable turn of fortune and a new world, with the 10 of spades fueling the growing fire of truth, creating space for a miracle, delving inside to go beyond. Oh, snap. We got the elements of water, earth, and air represented. Is there fire here? Oh, snap. Oh, snap. I think this is fire. Yeah, the element of fire is at the bottom of the deck. And it's that last number. So we have the last number of 1, last number 2, last number 3. And then here, the last 2 are cut off, but that's the last number of 4. So all of the elements are present here. Again, it's that the mixing, it's the order in which you do the alchemy, it's the proportions. It's the proportions, it's the order, how you combine these. But I mean, all together, we have a new truth, creating space for a miracle, delving inside to go beyond. Dawn before the first day of a new world, an old earth passed away, a favorable turn of fortune, and a powerful message duly received. Like 2 empires synchronized, a vision that ignites the self and the soul. And again, it's bringing me this like sort of dualistic nature between these 2. Like beyond that healing, everything awaits, everything. And I feel like, again, the biggest thing that kind of sort of cuts us off from that, or the biggest thing that limits that, is our own mind and the limitations thereof. And the mind, honestly, the human mind is one of my favorite things, because in some ways we can say that it's the brain, but it's capable of enveloping the entire universe. It's capable of creating new universes. It's capable of so much that we haven't even physically experienced or seen. But in the mind, it's all possible. I discovered that walking to campus in school, because I was bored, and so I would just let my mind wander. And anybody who saw me, I didn't see them. There was this one girl, I liked her so much, not romantically, but she was so cool. And we had a mutual friend. I literally went to school with her from kindergarten to college. And that's how I met her. And she was like, yeah, Lindsay said she saw you, but like you didn't even look at her. She said you were like stone faced, just like moving. And I was like, well, tell her to say something. Oh my gosh. Like, if you just catch me walking on campus, I'm not there. Like, physically, I'm there, but my mind is anywhere. Like, I remember I created like a 4D map of campus because I was there so long. The 4th dimension was time. So, like, I played with perspective. Like, I would try to see myself from a different perspective, and I would just like throw it out there. I came up with a naming system for trees in the fall based on the color of their leaves and how the branches were sort of situated. I kept myself entertained because the walk to class was boring. So the 2 cards that came out, it's Zachiel, Angel of Purity again. with this time the front end of the angel that we've been seeing the tail end of. Now it just flipped back over. So it was on this side in the deck, but it flips back to this side. Both of these have the head. But in this, we see the waning moon. And we've been seeing Sariel Angel of the waning moon a lot. So Zachiel was a valuable teacher in the realm of medicine, but his demeanor scared people. When he talked about living things, it was clear that he didn't see them for what they were, but rather what they were made of, blood and bone. When Zachiel's actions resulted in death, there was no remorse. To him, there was no consequential difference between the death of a child and the harvest of a stalk of wheat. Last time when this came out, it was a little bit of a warning, I guess, for us to not lose our humanity as we sort of ascend into whatever levels that we have the potential to, right? Or whatever people have been manifesting. Today, he comes out with this card. Now, this angel looks blindfolded. There's something in the root here. It feels like the root keeps us blind. It feels like it's in need of some fundamental restructuring. Bottom of the deck is Azazel, Angel of Sacrifices. You'll never believe this. The top of the deck is the other half of this angel. I don't think I've ever gotten these two together before. This was at the top of it. Now, we've been seeing the tail end of the angel a lot, but now it's complete. Behind the tail end of the angel is Cephlatus, angel of dust, with Satariel, angel of deception. Cephlatus built a growing collection of halls and spires that cracked the desert horizon, each one its own jagged landscape. Every day, men would witness the angel's latest creations, and each night they would cheer as he brought them down. As this cycle became commonplace, the only fanfare came at their destruction. That's unfortunate. Because it's like in the beginning, both the creation and the destruction were like, oh my gosh. But after it became commonplace, it was only the destruction that really caused anything to move within people. And it's this same destruction that sort of scare people when it comes to Zachiel. This is honestly both of these together. It's bringing to mind, because I've talked about it lately, Jonah, and how when God didn't destroy the city, he got upset. He was like, what? Like, I delivered this prophecy for you to not even destroy the city. Like, why did I waste my time? And honestly, the purpose was to give the warning. Like, they're good people. They just need to be reminded of that. They'll get it right. But the way that the message was delivered was one of destruction. But what it actually did was create a space for them to get closer to the divine, or to be reminded of what the divine was. Anyway, Jonah was throwing a fit that God didn't destroy the city. So one day he caused a vine to grow that shielded Jonah from the sun. And Jonah was like, ooh, thank God for the shade. Ooh, because it's a scorcher today. And then overnight, there was a worm that ate at the vine. And then, Jonah woke up with the sun glaring in his face, and he cursed the worm. But he knew that God sent the worm. So he was like, why did you send the worm to destroy the vine? And God is like, you're upset over this vine that you've known for a day. But that is a land, that is a people that I have known for how long? So you're more upset about this thing that got destroyed that you care about rather than the thing that was connected to all of these like livelihoods and things of that nature. And honestly, what that reminds me of, it's people who get more upset at like protests, or people who get more upset at being inconvenienced than they are upset about the reason why people are protesting in the first place. And so in that, then this takes on an energy. It feels like an angel that's like not able to fly. It feels like one that struggles to ascend back into its natural space because it's blinded by these things that it holds in the root. And on the back is this angel. Look like a gun or something. Oh, that's the trumpet. Girl, that's a trumpet. I'm just now seeing it. I was like, is that some kind of gun or something? So on the back is this angel blowing the trumpet, calling them home. But on the front is this angel that it struggles to make the journey. It struggles to make the trip. It's made too heavy by the things that it holds at the root, the things that it doesn't even question. And again, there are so many like inconsistencies when it comes to some people on a macroscopic scale versus like a microscopic scale, or versus their everyday life. And I mean, I guess it is what it is. We all have our own path and we all have our own journey, but it really does feel like there are some things that are ego locks. Oh, look, Cephalus, the angel of dust, is the box art. Only admired for his destructive ability now. Oh, and then Muriel, angel of Cancer, is on the back. I wonder if it was the angel of Cancer because it was a Cancer North node. Maybe not. I love these cards. That's what I got. I hope y'all have a good whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. And with that, I'll catch y'all whenever I catch y'all. Another hour-long video brought to you by yours truly.